This video is the first in a series of 3 on the case system in Old English. So it looks at how the case system expresses grammatical meaning. And this video, the first in this series, particularly focuses on the use of the nominative and accusative cases in a sentence, phrase, or clause. And throughout this series of 3, instead of using the letter W, I'll be using the runic symbol Wynn, standing for W. So modern authors shy away from using this symbol because it looks very much like a P and the letter P and can be confusing. But in the name of authenticity, I've chosen in this series of 3 videos to use the runic symbol Wynn, this one here. All right, just briefly, let's revise sentence structure. So a common sentence structure contains a subject, a verb, direct object, and an indirect object. And the subject is who or what is completing the action of the sentence. The verb is the action being performed. The direct object is who or what is connected with the action of the verb. And the indirect object is to who or what is the action done for. So in our first sentence, John kicked the football. The subject is John. The verb is kicked. The football is the direct object because it's connected with the verb, with the action of the verb. We can extend that sentence a bit to include an indirect object, and that's where we have John kicked the football to Sarah. So John subject, kicked verb, the football is a direct object, and the indirect object, the recipient of the action, the who for which the action is done, is Sarah. All right, another example, they gave some old books to the library. The subject is they, verb gave, some old books are the direct object, to the library is the indirect object. So the connected with the action of the verb is some old books, and the recipient of the action, the who or what for which this action is done, is the library. Now the order of that can be reversed as well and still makes sense in modern English. They gave the library some old books and means grammatically the same thing. So a slight variation in order there. All right. And this variation, as you'll find in Old English, is a lot freer again. And you'll see how that pulls together as we go through the series, that you can mix up the order, so to speak, and it still makes grammatical sense because Old English is an inflected language. And so case is very important because the case gives you grammatical meaning. So in Old English, subjects take the nominative form and they will be in red. Direct objects, the accusative, and that's in blue. Indirect objects are the dative, and they will be in the green. Now the genitive case plays, among other things, the role of the modern English form of possessive. And so let's start with a sentence. Now the key thing here is to look at, in any clause, sentence, phrase, to look at the spelling of the words and determine what case they are in, because that case conveys real grammatical meaning. Just as up here, they is the subject, the black is the verb, gave, some old books, the direct object, to the library, the indirect object, and they're coloured. Now let's have a look at our first sentence in Old English. We have far sada he him this be sapella. Now, then told, the verb, sada, told, verb. Hey, well, that is the nominative for he. Him is the dative for them. And you can look these things up in your tables, in your dictionaries, online dictionaries such as Bosworth, Toller, the Old English Translator website, Old English Glossary website. You can look all these up and in some others. Now, this be sapel is in the accusative. And so when you convert this, so what you've got here is the verb, the subject, the direct object of the verb, the object connected with the action of the verb, which is told, and then the recipient of all this is him, and that recipient is in the dative. So then told he them this story. So he told them this story. If we were to translate to modern English, he told them this story. A literal translation would be then told he them this story. But because of the case of these words, we can convert it to modern English because it makes sense to us. We can see that this is the subject because it's in the nominative, This is the object because it's in the accusative. This is the verb. And this is the dative, which is the indirect object, which is the recipient of all this action, which is, in this case, them. All right, another sentence. Seo Coen Yearth Haring Tham Wiende. So the queen gives a ring to the warrior. Now, here, Seo and Quain are in the nominative. Quain is the spelling here tells you it's in the nominative, so the queen is the subject of this sentence. The queen is what this sentence is all about, the who or what of all this action. Yearth gives, haring, a ring. Now that's in the accusative, and hence it's coloured in blue. Yearth is a verb, gives. Thamwienda is in the dative, that E on the end. Wiend, warrior, but wienda, warrior in the dative. So this is the recipient of all this action. So from the queen, there's a ring, and it's given to the warrior. So the queen gives a ring to the warrior. Tham, wienda, both words are in the dative. Und heo hina tharmonide, and she, him, then encouraged. Now, heo is in the nominative form, and that is she. In the nominative form, she. Und is a conjunction, and hina is in the accusative. So that tells us when it's spelled like that, in the accusative, it stands for him. Tharmonida, then encouraged. That's a verb, and so what you have is the accusative, which is the direct object, the connected with the action of the verb, which is encouraged. So it's he, him that's encouraged. And who did it? Heo, the subject. And she, him, then encouraged, or she encouraged him. All right. Now, let's put this together. So ond heo hina tharmonida is a clause. It could be a sentence in its own right because it makes sense. And to which we'll now connect a subordinate clause, and that's this part here. So that altogether we have ond heo hina tharmonida, ond larde that he warled hard an for later. So, and she, him, then encouraged, as we saw before. And now we have this conjunction ond, or and. Und larde that he, and taught that he, warled hard, secular life, and for later should forsake. So that he is in the nominative, and it stands for he. It's the nominative form of he. So that is the subject here in this subordinate clause. This part here from the conjunction on is the subordinate clause, and that is in the nominative. So he is the subject of this subordinate clause. Warled hard is in the accusative and stands for secular life. And here, an for later is the verb because it should forsake. So we can see that, and she, him, then encouraged and taught that he, secular life, should forsake. So she taught and encouraged him to forsake the secular life. And we get that meaning by looking at the spelling of the words and seeing, if we don't know the case off by heart, then we look it up in a dictionary, but we find that we can reconstruct the meaning to translate it into modern English. All right, fella sapella him arsadon fa bermas. Now, fella sapella, well, checking that spelling, we find that's in the accusative. Him is in the dative. Arsadon is told, verb. Tharbermas is in the nominative, and so that's the subject. So Tharbermas, which were a people at the time, and so they are the subject, and they're telling him here many stories. All right, so let's have a look now at the nominative. Now, the main role of the nominative is to identify the subject of a sentence, and so we have say halavord rideth the horse. The Lord rides the horse. Say halavord is in the nominative. The say marks it out as the subject as well. That's the nominative form of the. Say halavord, the Lord. It's in the nominative. So clearly the subject. Now, rideth is a verb, rides, and then the horse, that's actually in the accusative, although I'm not marking it here because I want to concentrate on the nominative, but that's in the accusative, so that's the object, connected with the verb writing. Say Atheling saith, the prince speaks. So the prince here is in the nominative, and so that's the subject. Now the nominative is also used to identify the subject complement. And the subject complement is the thing which renames or describes a subject and so completes its meaning. So we'll put the subject complement is in the nominative, and I'll put it in red, but also underline it to show that it is the complement. It's an extra, something extra about the subject, which gives you more information about the subject. Say Atheling is say magister. So the prince is the teacher. The prince is the teacher. Say Atheling is say magister. Say Osuna is Sawida Barad. Now the sun is very broad. Now that broad there is giving you is in the subject, is in the nominative because it's a subject complement. It's telling us something a bit more about the sun. Sayo, which is the feminine. Sayo Suna, that's in the nominative. So that's the subject. Is Sawida now is very. Barad, which is in the nominative. So it's a subject complement. So it's giving us more information about the sun. Heo is Seo Kawain. Now, Heo is she is in the nominative, so she is a subject, and then Seo Kawain is actually all in the nominative too. Seo, feminine here, Seo, feminine. But it's giving you some more information about who she is. So it's a subject complement. Ich am salapi. Ich am salapi. I am sleepy. Ich, subject, nominative. Am, verb, am. Salapi, subject complement, giving more information about I, myself, me. Now, the use of direct address requires a name or title of the person being spoken to is in the nominative. So we have here, Yuseach tu kuning, hawalch leos la rasia. So what it's saying is, see, king, what kind of teaching this is. Yuseach tu kuning, hawalch leos la rasia. Now what it's saying here, the king is being addressed directly. So the object of that direct address is in the nominative. So king is in the nominative here. Athelstan sachathu. Athelstan speak. Athelstan is being directly addressed. So Athelstan is in the nominative. Sachathu, speak. Say you. So Athelstan speak. Yehurusata thu salada, what this folk saith. Do you hear, sailor, what these people are saying? Now salada is, the sailor is being directly addressed. So salada is in the nominative. Salada. Yehurusata thu salada, what this folk saith. Now the accusative case, now the main role of the accusative is to identify the direct object of the verb. Say Atheling asketh thonaleornere. The prince asks the student. So the prince, here in the nominative, the verb asketh. Thonaleornere, the prince asks the student. And here, the object, the direct object, connected with the action of the verb asketh, is in the accusative. So if you look up that spelling there, both words there you'll find are in the accusative. Say Halavard asketh Thona Saladan. The Lord asked the sailor. This time, notice this sailor is different to that one. That was in the nominative. This one is in the accusative. And so you know that the sailor here is the direct object of this verb here, asketh, is connected with the action of this verb. So it's a direct object. Say Halavard asketh Thona Saladan. And so the Lord is the subject, the verb is asks, and it's the sailor who is a direct object. And that helps you in translating it to modern English. That tells you what is happening, which is how this sentence here, the Lord asks the sailor, can be put together. Tha theovas satelleth that gold. The thieves are stealing the gold. Now, that gold is in the accusative, so it is the object of this verb satelleth, steal, to steal, or are stealing. Tha theovas satelleth that gold. So the thieves are stealing the gold. His aachen sawustar bebuurde his leech. His own sister buried his corpse. His own sister buried his corpse. His aachen sawustar bebuurde his leech. His own sister buried his corpse. And leech is in the accusative, so it's the object of this verb buried. Right. On the Thargatu him to Balokan have done, and the gates them to locked were, okay, or the gates were locked against them. And Thargatu is in the accusative, so it's the object of Balokan. It's connected with the action Balokan. And so on the Thargatu him to Balokan have done, and the gates were locked against them. So they were locked against them. The gates were the object of this here, and him, to Balokan Habden. So they were locked against them. Fella Sapella again, that's in the accusative. Him Arsadon Tha Beormas. Many stories to him told the Beormas, the group of people. So Fella Sapella, that tells you it is the object of this verb here, Arsadon. All right. And then him is in the dative here, is connected with the action. It's the recipient of all this action. On heo hina tha monade, as we saw earlier, him, hina, is in the accusative, and so when you translate it, it translates to him. So he's the object of this encouragement, this verb here, monade. Now the accusative is also used for the objects of some prepositions. Theo koen rideth thurch thonotun. The queen rides through the town. The queen rides through the town. Thurch, meaning through, is a preposition, and so its object, thonotun, is in the accusative. So, Seo Queen rideth thurch thonotun. The queen rides through the town. He rideth yeond that land. He rides throughout the land. That land is in the accusative. So, and just before it, yeond, throughout, is a preposition. And so that land is the object of this preposition yeond, throughout. And so it takes the accusative. And it helps to give you meaning. So, he rideth yeond that land. Say Atheling gath to far sa. The prince goes towards the sea. Say Atheling gath to far sa. The prince goes towards the sea. Far sa follows a preposition to, toward. To, toward, preposition, far sa. So that's in the accusative, far sa. When you learn some of the paradigms for nouns, adjectives, and so on, after a while you'll be able to see that a word is in the nominative, or it's in the accusative, or it's in the dative or genitive. Otherwise, you're going to need to resort to dictionaries to look things up and see. So you've got the Bosworth-Toller online dictionary, you have the Old English Translator, and you have the Old English Glossary, and there are some others as well as some books you can buy, and they will help you translate that way. All right, now, some statements of time and space where no preposition is present take the accusative form. So we've got no preposition here, but it's statements of time and space. So we've got say where saith elna day. So elna day, all day, is in the accusative. So say where saith elna day. The man speaks all day. The man speaks all day. Thonanich satan day rad heo farth. The next day she rode forth. Thonanich satan day. The next day rad heo farth. She rode forth. Say halava rutgath ana mile. The Lord goes 1 mile. Ana 1 mile, mile. So we can see here there's not necessarily a preposition involved, but it's a statement of time and space, and so it takes the accusative there. Because there's often, when you're talking about something that's related to time or space, it is actually the object of which you're speaking. So naturally it would fall into the accusative. Phaleon fortis terrum, to flee at a foot's pace. Phaleon fortis terrum, to flee at a foot's pace. Fortis is in the accusative. All right.